What's up, everyone? In today's video I'm going to show you how to cut a carbon fiber fork. I have here my gravel bike. This is the Ibis Haka MX, and I actually only cut this fork one time, if I can remember, when I first built the bike, which was about 3 years ago. And I left some space at the very top of the stem to account for where I might want to get comfortable and cut my fork. So I've been riding the bike for several years now, and I've finally decided my height, and now it's time to actually cut the fork. So with me, and what I've learned from my good buddy Chuck is to measure 15 times and cut once. So once you make your cut, you never really go back from that. So yeah, just make sure that when it's time to set your height, make sure that's exactly where you want it to be. With my height on the bike, I have a 15mm tapered spacer that is basically not even a spacer. It acts as one, but it's a top bearing cover, and tapers upward to a 5mm spacer right underneath. And you have the stem after that, and then right here is the fork. And on top of that, I'm going to put a 5mm spacer. It's recommended by a lot of bicycle manufacturers to add a 15mm spacer on top of the stem. I'm sorry, 5mm spacer on top of the stem. So I'm going to do that. You can also do like a 2.5mm. Some people ride it flush, but you know, for strength and just overall durability, for having a strong steer tube, is to just put a 5mm spacer on top, and that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to get a little closer in on how to mark your cut, but before you do that, I highly recommend just test riding your bike again to make sure that that's the height you want for your stem to be, and then from there we can go ahead and score it and cut. So let's go ahead and do that. Alright y'all, so I just came back and test rode the bike, and everything is set up really well. I have 20mm of stack height right here underneath the stem, which is perfect for me. And I'm going to add a 5mm spacer on top once I cut the fork. One thing I forgot to mention is your expander plug that goes inside the steer tube. Now you want to make sure that you measure it properly, and oftentimes when you get a new bike or you're building one, it may have a short one that doesn't pass all the way down the stem. So you want to make sure that you have a long enough one, and you want to measure. And how do you do that? You measure the top of the stem to the bottom of the top bearing in your head tube. So I measured, and mine went to about 70mm, but I added an extra 20, so this is a 90mm expander plug, which is going to add more strength to that steer tube, a bit more durability as well, so that, you know, the forces and the stress that you're putting on it when you're riding, whether you're out the saddle, especially if you're a big guy like myself and really strong and everything, you want to make sure you have that extra security. So I like to go a little bit longer just to pass that top bearing underneath that top head tube there. So just some food for thought. Okay, so you want to determine your cut line, and again, when you do that, just account for a spacer that you want to put on top of the stem. I'm putting a 5mm spacer on top, and you can also do a 2mm if you want, whatever you need. So what I'm going to do is mark the top here. I'm going to score it with my pick. Just a light score, a little scratch just to make a mark in the top of the stem. And again, you want to do this about 15 times before you score and cut, because there's no going back after this. So just make sure you get a nice cut line in here, and that looks about right. Cool. Alright, so you want to use the right tool for the job. I have a vise right here, the Park tool. This is the SG8 cutting guide, and this is the one with a little bit more space in between the SG6, which is another one you can use. Since I'm cutting a carbon fork, I have a carbon fiber blade. This is the CB1 blade that goes into the Park Tool hacksaw. You don't have to use Park Tool stuff. You can just use any kind of hacksaw blade. You can use an aluminum one that cuts aluminum. You can use one that cuts carbon, depending on how you want to go about it. Carbon on carbon, I'm going to use a carbon blade, so that's how it goes. And what I'm going to do is just mount this inside of the vise and set the fork up inside of here. Tighten everything down and get ready to get that cut in. So once you have everything set up in your vise and in the Park Tool steerer tube cutting guide, then you want to just like make sure that your line is definitely aligned inside that little slot there, because that's where your guide is to cut the steerer tube. So just make sure it's in there, give it a few times. If you can't see, you can put a spotlight to it, a little flashlight, and just make sure that it's in there. And again, once you cut it once, this is it. You ain't coming back. So just make sure you do that. And also make sure you have the right tools for the job. This is again the Park 2 SG8. There's also an SG6. And you want to use like a solid hacksaw. This is the Park 2 one. And again, these tools I accumulated over time. So, you know, you can use a different tool. You can go to like Harbor Freight if you'd like, which are some local stores that, you know, I like to go get tools. But if there's something like more specific to bikes that you need to fix, sometimes Park Tool is just the way to go. But personal preference, you don't have to go with Park Tool, although Park Tool stuff is awesome. But yeah, again, just make sure that that line is inside that slot there before you do your cut. Wear a safety mask. Just for like, you know, carbon fiber dust and sawdust, whatever. You don't really need to like spray it or tape it down. Just put it in here and you want to just like cut away like nicely. Try not to go like hacking away at it, but nice, even, straight lines across. Alright, so now the steer tube is cut, nice and clean. We just want to take some sandpaper inside the steer tube and around it to just make sure all the frayed marks are just not in there and it's nice and smooth. And then we'll go ahead and pop this back onto the bike. So after you sand it, this is what you're looking for. You want it to be nice and smooth to the touch. You don't want to feel any kind of fraying or splinters that you can get from the carbon fiber. It should be nice and smooth on the outside, the top, and also inside the steer tube as well. And that's just about it. Let's get this on the bike now. Now's a good time to clean away any debris or dirt that you see on the fork steer tube and also like in and around the actual fork legs. This is my favorite part. The bearing. And then you want to grab that 5mm spacer. We're going to install that expander plug, this here. So what you want to do with this is make sure you use the right tool for the job. And again, that's going to be a torque wrench. Generally speaking, it's like 5 to 7 Newton meters to tighten down these expanders. This one says max 10 Newton meters. So I'm going to top mine out at 7. Go ahead and torque that to 7. When you're torquing this, you're going to hear a click, and that's when you know that it's torque this back. Give it one more go. And that's it. On goes the stem. Alright everyone, so just a quick view of what it looks like with the expander plug on top with the fork. You can see that it comes out a little bit on top of the stem, which is what you want so that your clamping mechanism with the fork is fully covered here. And sometimes like your top cap might look like a UFO top cap, which means that you'll see it sort of taper over here. And oftentimes when you put, sometimes you can like taper inside the actual extender here, your expander for your fork plug. So again, you want to just add a spacer on top of that, and that'll give you the coverage that you need. This is a 5mm. I can probably get like a 2mm on here, but I think this looks just about good here to me. And again, you just pop it in there. You might want to like throw some Loctite on here, the blue Loctite, and everything should be good to go. So that's how you basically cut a fork steer tube and set up your height and everything, and clean it up and make sure it's like nice and dialed in. Hope this video helped out. You already know what to do. Give me a like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.